I turned 50 this year. In my entire childhood, I was told two things about this landmark. One, I believe the world is more screwed up now than it was when I was younger. That I would be convinced that the political division of today was worse than it was in my youth, and that I would be delusional because society has always been this way. And two, I would appreciate my parents more, and the implication was, by then, I would miss them. My parents were alive and well, and it's interesting, none of my parents had any of their parents alive at this age. I have lived long enough to go through the stages of one, admiring them as superheroes. Two, realizing and resenting them because they're just human. Three, finding our differences. Four, realizing that they did try and that they really were just human. And five, being grateful. Five is not always easy because, as I said, my parents are still alive and still freely tell me when I'm wrong. To this day, if we are leaving as a family to do something, and if my shirt is untucked, my stepmother will say, "That was an interesting choice." But the funny thing about turning 50 is that I can see more where clearly I was wrong, and it hurts more, and it hurts in a quiet way. But there's one mistake I've been making in this town for the past 25 years or so, and tonight, and for the rest of my life, I get to correct this. You see, I have three parents. I have my father, my mother, and my stepmother since age 9. I spent my teenage years between the two homes, and for shorthand, I would say my mother's house or my parents. It was and is not an insult to my mother. It was laziness, and I was a teenager. But today I say I have three parents, and I do. And the mistake I've made is that whenever people would meet me with my stepmother and she would introduce me as her daughter, people would give that funny look like, "Are you sure?" And I would joke, "Well, she raised me as a teenager, and I wasn't an easy teenager." And the other person would laugh, and we'd all continue to the next formality in the conversation, and that was wrong. One, most of us were not easy teenagers, especially those of us with stepmothers. But that is not why I am her daughter. She's my parent because she loves me. She cares for me, she helps guide me, and she became my parent, and I was not an easy teenager. And I think in a way our parents, all of our parents, become our parents. In psychology, not to put anyone in a box, there's a phrase, nature versus nurture, and I've never liked that phrase when it comes to ability or talents or kindness, and especially raising children. It is nurture, always. There are people here who will tell you why someone is not their parent because of lack of nurture, a lack of support, a lack of caring, or what have you. In my entire life, when anyone has ever said to a mother, "You make XYZ look so easy," not one mother has ever said, "Oh, this comes naturally." I'm not a mother, but I gotta tell you, it doesn't look easy. And if being a mother came naturally, would anyone be here tonight? Listening? We're all just here trying to figure out what you did, how you survived, how some of us learned to laugh, others to forgive, because we understand that love can be a struggle. I also recognize that my third parent is my parent by choice. She chose to become my parent. She chose to love me, and I recognize that. Years ago, in my 20s, we as a family had been living in Rochester maybe 5 years, and my stepmother is up for a prestigious award, and in her bio, she listed 3 children. Now, the story I'm telling you was told to me. That's part of family too. The stories we are told and the stories we repeat. My stepmother's father was alive then. He had traveled to come up to see his beloved 2 granddaughters, and I believe it was the last time he came up to Rochester before he died. And in a joking way, he said, "3? Is there something you want to tell me?" And my stepmother said, "Amy." My stepmother did not win that award that year. She lost to Ursula Burns, the first Black woman to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Go Rochester. She did win later. Now, my stepmother's father, he was not, nor is he my grandfather. One of the hardest truths about being human is we don't get to choose who loves us and who loves us in return. And for some of you, that is a sibling or a parent or a child, but he knew that his daughters and granddaughters loved me. But who I am today is partly because of him too. I am an artist and a writer, and by artist I mean photographer, but everyone in this town takes photographs, so I just say artist. But I'm an artist because my stepmother's father enjoyed taking photographs, and throughout his career as a lawyer, in his travels for delight, he took pictures, and we have albums and albums of his photographs. My stepmother also picked up image making, and she carried her camera with her as a young woman, and she took pictures for a college newspaper of protests, her friends, and everyday occurrences she didn't want to forget. And when I was a kid, before I knew my stepmother and her father's interest, I had declared that I wanted to take pictures. And my father and stepmother had not yet had children, so I was under 12, and my stepmother and father gave me erasers shaped like 35mm film rolls, a book published by Kodak about what makes a good picture, and then a 110 camera. By the way, I knew someone with a brand new disc camera, so you can imagine how disappointed I was, but they made up for it. When I was accepted at graduate school for photography 20 years later, both my father and stepmother went out and bought me as a surprise the nicest Nikon and camera lens you could get. When I was in my 20s, on my first international trip, when I was still using my father's Canon F1 from 1972 or 1973 with a broken light meter, my stepmother took out a very nice camera her father had given her and said I could use it, and the unspoken was, "I trust you, but be careful." And I was. And when I shot something later for graduate school, my stepmother took down her Polaroid land camera, one of the coolest cameras ever made, and offered it to me. And my stepmother gave me the best piece of advice ever, which I believe was an observation from her friend Linda that was given to her about taking photographs. Sometimes taking photographs prevents you from participating in what you are trying to capture. Choose wisely. My stepmother has framed photographs, her photographs, in the house I grew up in the house they live in now. And they weren't just family. We had a picture of a windmill she had taken from a moving car. She was my first artist. The passion, joy, expression she was shown by her father was given to me. My undergraduate degree is in history, and I like to joke that New York State has acknowledged this by granting me a BS in history, and I was so good at it, they gave me honors. And the most useful thing I learned from my history degree was how it is defined. The past is fixed with very little remnants, but history is contemporary thinking of the past and can be reinterpreted. And what does this have to do with motherhood, or my stepmother, or you? It has to do with the stories we tell, the stories I tell. Years ago, when I was about 3 or 4 years sober, I did put my parents through the ringer. I heard a man named Steve say that when he got sober, he felt his parents, who were elderly at the time, felt like his alcoholism was their fault. So he would have his parents over for dinner once a week and tell them something they did well. He intentionally told them what they did well. We all know hurts we have caused and hurts that still bleed. We all have things in our past that continue to ache. But what if we told the people the things that they did well? What if we told our parents, our children, our friends what mattered when we felt hurt, seen, loved? And it's not always easy, but I think it's what's needed. And don't say, "Oh, I'll just pay it forward." What if we said thank you? What if we stopped saying all the hurts and said when we felt like we belonged? It will not change your past, but you will have a better and richer history. And there's a catch, especially if it's your mother or stepmother. You have to be honest. You cannot bullshit this. It's your mother. And some of us can't do this, but we can do it for someone who loves us, someone who said you belong, someone who said you matter. This is how we heal. If we only tell our hurt, our failings, we have forgotten the moments that matter to why we are here. But I've learned to live by example, so you can watch me. Jen, you gave me so many things: the gift, the confidence to make art, the ability to pause and listen when receiving criticism, to evaluate myself and my work, to strive to do my best, always, and when I fail or even succeed, to get back up and keep going. Thank you.